Oh, here he goes. Go. Good. That's a big fish.
Full hand on tail. Yeah, looks sick.
Good deal. Look how broad that thing is.
I wonder if that was the one that followed me in.
Beautiful. Oh my. That's a big
That's a
fish.
big fish, dude.
Shrimp.
That's what I've been waiting for all day.
That's over 6.
Felt that bite.
Damn, I think low and slow is the way to go, eh, baby?
First big of the year on.
The thing I'm about to tie on.
Get him, get him.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Calm down. Come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here.
Yeah, dude!
Dude.
6 pounds, 11 ounces.
Oh my god, please get the net. Please, 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 please get the net.
I got you, buddy. Oh my god. I got you.
That was the weirdest bite ever. Oop. That was a good one? Yep.
Sure, feels like it.
Sure is.
I can't turn her head, bud. Holy sh! What the? Is that another 6?
Could be.
The second giant of the day, proving that point. Oh my god! Oh my god! Yes! Big baits, big fish. There we go, 5 pounds, 6 ounces. Beauty! Let's go. Got him. Get in here, you. There's another 6. You. That's a big fish.
6'10". Little fatty.
Oh my god.
If I can land this fish.
Holy sh! 5.06. Sick. Oh my god! Oh my god! Holy sh! God. What a beast. Dude, that's it, that's it! I'm 4 pounds smaller. I need a picture. Sorry.
Oh wow. That might be a 4. That might be a 4.
Yeah, it's a 4. You guys show that off too. 4 pounds, 12 ounces. Holy. Trailers, what's getting it done? Yeah?
Yeah.
Dude, that's unbelievable. That's a 4.
He's still swimming.
There we go. That's a big fish. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes! 414 though. Gee. Not too shabby.
Hey, there we are. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Reel Northern Bass Talk. We have our friend Dennis here tonight, and we have Andrew over there in the world of the internets at a different location.
The interwebs.
Dennis was kind enough to bring delicious adult beverages.
Yes.
Fiddlehead for me tonight.
Great notion.
Great notion. I've had that one before. It's amazing.
Somehow carried in New Hampshire now.
Really?
At a gas station.
Which, no kidding. Yeah, usually that's usually how I have to find those. It's like random gas stations in Vermont.
Yeah.
Because Vermont has all the good stuff. The good fishing, the good beer. Not to say New Hampshire doesn't have good beer.
My stores are in Mass.
Different stores.
Who do we got in the chat before we get started here? A bunch of people. Andrew, Doherty, Z20, John there, David, Jim, Ethan, Mark, Tammy, Andrew, Dave, Jeremy, Jim, MD, Mark again, Dogbone. Oh my God, everybody's here. Well, that's awesome. Oh, Jerry Brusso. Hey, friend. I saw you and your grandson there had a fantastic day up in the Lakes region.
Oh, yeah.
Glad that actually worked out.
They get 22 pounds.
Yeah. They went to... we share this one, right? Yeah, we talk about this plenty of times. Newfound.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They had themselves a good day.
Good to know it still has it.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Carter.
Hey, Carter.
It was pretty funny because what the hell we were talking about with that lake? I had a subscriber reach out to me about that because he was like, "Hey, turns out we're going to be up there this summer, and I've noticed you fished it a lot. Like, what can you tell me about there being in August?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Good luck."
Yeah. Look for another lake.
That lake is that. So to digress for a minute, Newfound everything I ever heard is it's tough fishing in the summer, and everything I heard was accurate. And that's the reason why I was like, okay, was it like 13, 14 years ago? I was like, I'm going to learn smallmouth. I'm going to pick the hardest goddamn lake in the state, and I'm going to work on that. And that's where I cut my teeth.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I find it so much easier everywhere else I go, because Newfound is where I set the bar.
That's true. Low bar.
Newfound's awesome.
You know, it is awesome, and it's kind of sad. We've only fished it, I think, like 3 times in the last 3 years.
I know. We've gone like once every year.
3 times in the last 2
Actually,
years.
no, we didn't even go.
We went once last year.
I went with you last year. You and I went last year in the middle of the summer.
Oh, yeah. So Andrew and I didn't go then. Maybe we did once. So maybe we fished it 4 times last year. Well, anyway, point stands. Went from a place we used to fish like all the time to like barely touching it now. Just because our focus has been on largemouth.
Yeah.
Although, with this topic in mind, a return there very soon is in the cards. That's for sure. Maybe. We'll see. There's a lot of other things I'd like to do this year. Maine is still in the cards. Not this weekend. It's Father's Day weekend. But the following weekend, we're going up with a subscriber. Remember, everybody, we did the 100th episode special, and we picked a random winner. We are finally going to make that trip happen. We're going to take out Kevin, the winner, up somewhere in Maine, which would be pretty fun. And after that, I've got a ton of travel. Andrew and I are doing the New Hampshire Bass Nation tournament on the Connecticut River in Hinsdale, middle of July.
We are?
Right? Andrew?
News to Andrew.
Cool, let's do it.
It's funny. One of my buddies I know, subscriber to Cam, reached out today. He's like, "Hey, what do you know for bait fish over there? I got a tournament." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to that tournament too, so F you. You know, I'm not telling you anything." we talked a little bit. Gunner, I'm not sure where in Maine yet. It'll probably be somewhere in the greater area around Sebago, or maybe north. May drive up to like the Belgrade area. I've never fished anywhere up there in my own boat, so I just know you.
Me.
Quite a lot too.
Quite a lot.
So the only thing I know for sure is that you seemingly can't go wrong up there.
You should look at China or Cabasaconte.
Cabasaconte is a place I have been dying to fish for years, because the New Hampshire, well, the whole New England sub forum from Bass Boat Central goes up there for they call it their own version of the gathering, or I forget what the hell they call it. They've been doing that, God, for like the last 10 years or so, maybe longer. And every year I say I'm going to go up there, and I miss it. They were just all up there last week, and I think they actually had a pretty good time.
It's a good place. It's like a miniature Champlain in a way.
Really?
It fishes similar to Champlain.
I like that.
Yeah, seriously.
That could be fun.
China is better than Cobbossee. He's right, though. But I think Cobbossee has more potential different techniques that you can do on it.
China's pretty good. I've heard it's really good.
China's good.
China, I've heard really, really good things. I don't know. We'll get up. Like, China is in the cards, at least for Andrew and I, at some point this year. Maybe you join us. We'll do like a little mega boat trip. We'll get just a little flotilla out there.
I like that.
All right.
I'm just going to tie onto your boat.
I've done it.
Yes.
I had my boat is 18 foot and just regular 18-foot fiberglass bass boat, and the troll had a 45-pound thrust trolling motor on it, so it didn't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
I went like a half a mile an hour, so I was like, "Hey, bring me that spot over there." So we tied a rope.
I like that. That's good service.
Yeah.
DJ said, "You know how to win that tournament on the Connecticut River." Yes, sir. Thanks to fishing with you twice out there now, I have a very good read on a very different way of fishing than I normally would tackle it. But I intend on taking the Friday off before that tournament and going out there and literally spending the whole day alone side imaging the whole river. It's like as far as I can go, because I can essentially cover everything I really need to cover in 2 passes, down one shoreline, down back up the other, and just idle the whole frickin' thing and mark everything I find that looks good. We'll figure it out from there. And I did see this from Jerry. Let me know when you're headed via text Hunter, and I might haul our boat up. I tell you what, Jerry, we're going to fish local to Milford-ish area. My dad and maybe my uncle might be coming out too, but like if they do, my uncle bring out his boat.
With the Ranger?
Regardless. Huh?
With the Ranger?
No, not the Ranger. If they go out, my uncle's going to take his nitro out. But we're just going to fish relatively local-ish. So we'll keep you posted, though, if you want to follow us. I almost told him, Andrew, what we did Sunday on our way home from Champlain. But then I was like, no, he's not going to want to put his boat in there. And I've already warned him about it, and he was like, all right.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, it was fun. We caught a bunch of fish in like 2 hours, so.
Yeah. So we left We did the tournament on Champlain Saturday. We'll cover that quickly, and then we'll get into the heart of the topic here. And then we stayed up. You know where we were staying.
I know where you're staying.
And it sucked. I sight fished like a really, really good smallmouth right from below my feet off that ledgy kind of area.
Yep.
And I dropped it right at the boat. Like I got a good hook set. She came up, one hook head shake out of the water and popped off.
Classic.
Yep. And then I caught like another good largie, missed another big smallie, and like that was kind of it for what we did there. We left earlier than anticipated. Called my wife on the way home. She's like, "Hey, we're actually going to go out to Kimball's for dinner." So I looked at Andrew after I got the phone. I was like, "So we're stopping at
We got more time.
we're stopping at that spot, right?" He's like, "Yeah, we got 2 hours. We can do that." We ended up catching, like Andrew said, I think 20 fish in like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's
pretty
pretty
fun.
good.
Is this the
I
spot
was
that I'm
throwing
thinking
a
of?
drop shot.
Yeah,
The spot?
up the street from that one.
Yeah, no, not
You
there.
pass
Ah,
that one to get to the spot that you're thinking of,
I know. Okay.
the more well-known one.
Not a great boat launch.
It's fine for your boat. Your boat's light. You should
That's
be able
true.
to launch yours fine.
That's true. Sean would launch his boat into a sewer, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. Oh, Jerry, all right, my bad. When you're talking the main trip, okay, I will let you know. That will. Yeah, I think you'd be really interested to know where we're planning on going. I'll hit you up tomorrow.
Is that
What?
an emoji of Andrew's face?
Yes, it is. It's glorious, isn't it?
It is glorious. It's beautiful. Hey, look at this. You look good.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
So, all right, one last thing, and then we'll get into it. Because we usually do like a weekend fishing recap, but in this case, we were up at the Plunder Bay Open for our tournament on Saturday. And for those that didn't see any of the posts, we did okay. We ended up finishing 17th out of 49 boats. We had 5 largies for 15.63 pounds. I'm not going to share all the nitty-gritty details of how exactly we caught them because I'm really intrigued on how we figured that out. But I will say spinnerbait, open water sniper jig, and Alabama rig. At Vermont legal Alabama rig, mind you. And Andrew was the one that did the A-rig and came in clutch. Like, he literally, like, we saw a situation. He was like, yep, I'm getting that. First cast, fired out, caught a fish, made a call. Second fish, fired out, caught a fish, made a call. 2 casts, 2 good calls. We're like, all right, that was great. And I think we may have called one more time after that. But it was...
Yeah, I think 1 or 2 more times, but it was close. It wasn't by much.
No, at that point, we were just calling for a couple ounces here and there. And at one point, we had 2 fish right about 2.5 pounds. And we came up on a spot, and there was a fish on a bed. Like, I didn't realize it was on a bed at first because of the water clarity and how deep and, like, what it was related to. Mm-hmm. I just saw, like, a good 3-ish pound largie just sitting, like, literally right in front of me. Like, 2 feet off the edge of the boat and 3 feet down. I'm like, huh. So I flipped my jig out. I got her interested. It took, like, I think 5 or 6 pitches, and I ended up just getting her. I was like, sweet, 3.3 pounds. I was like, oh, shit. Okay, that was a good call. We start moving. Not 10 feet from her is another fish on the bed that was like definitely bigger. Not huge, mind you, but definitely bigger. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm feeling really good. And at this point, I knew our smallest fish was 2.6 pounds because I just went and weighed through the last 3.
Yep.
And I hooked her and I turned her head and she came unbuttoned and then I couldn't get her to bite again. The cloud cover came in and it was
Gone.
Done. Done. Had I caught that fish, it would have been awesome. And it probably would have helped us finish like maybe 12th.
Yeah.
It's still not in the money.
Yeah.
No.
What's that area like? Is it shallow?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andrew, I'll let you elaborate on the game plan of like basically what our prep work looked like and what our game plan did and what we like how we quickly adjusted. But I will say, I have fished the Ticonderoga area for 3 hours. Now we went north the very first time we went up there and I fished around Port Henry for like 6 hours to DJ. The very first time I had ever been there. But we were fishing in such a completely different way and literally in just like this one 600-foot stretch that I wouldn't really consider that as experienced fishing in that area. Yeah. We made the run up to literally fish this one like 2 football size patch of area and like that was it. So, and then when I went to Ticonderoga a month ago, I fished literally one 300-foot stretch of shoreline for 3 hours, and then we left. So that is the extent of our knowledge for the entirety of the southern half of Lake Champlain.
So we pretty much got together like 3 days before we left online, and we just bounced back and forth pictures of maps, and I was looking on Google Earth or whatever it was, and he was on avionics, and whatever other websites he uses. We were just bouncing back information, and we were going up the shorelines and stuff, finding good points, and looking at like we didn't even really look for anything deeper because they should have been pushed up.
Yeah, they should be shallow.
And so we were looking at all like really any like if there was any current breaks or any sort of good points to work on, and just we had a game plan. We're going to start at this one point, and if that didn't pan out, then we're going to go to the next point or another spot, which we ended up doing. We ended up going and fishing the wrong point at first for like a good half hour, 45 minutes. Didn't get anything. Got to the point that we originally picked. We got there. My first fish of the day was like a 10, 15 pound drum on a jig.
It was like a 15-pound drum. It was huge.
Yeah. And then
Weighed that in, just painted it green.
You can't down there because it's like chocolate milk. So I didn't know. I was like, that's not a bass. It can't be a bass. If it is, it's a 12-pounder. Like there's no freaking way.
Yeah.
Or it's a pike. And gets to the boat. Oh yeah, it's a drum. And then just gets to the boat, does a 180, and just takes off the other way. My reel is just. I can't do anything about this. So we ended up seeing a bunch of. I believe there were smallmouth schooling up out in the middle eating alewife. Doing a rig out there a bunch. Could not get them to bite anything. So we ended up working stand up shallow. We found this one point that had it was like a ledgy, rocky kind of point, but there was like grass and vegetation mixed in with it as it hit the water. He caught one quick with a spinnerbait off the front of that, and I fired
like
in
£1.25 mind you. It was tiny, but
I
first fish in the boat.
Cast in right behind him, and got like a 3 3/4.
Yeah, I think that was
like
the biggest one we had for the day. It ended up being 3.73 or 3.79. I forget.
Something like that.
Yep. We had first place in Lunker for like the first 10 minutes of the weigh in.
go.
It was great. We were first out of 5 boats weighed in.
Only it stopped then.
So pretty much we were just like, well, what do you want to do? Like, you want to run? And we're just like, sure, let's go. Let's just try everything. And we just bounced from spot to spot to spot to spot to spot till we got to where we started catching more fish, which was we ended up running 15, 20 miles north.
About 15 miles total.
And got up to where he saw that spawning fish, and we worked that entire shoreline, which was a pretty big shoreline. I mean, Lake Champlain shorelines aren't small. So,
True.
We ended up catching most of our fish off that one spot, and then the last 20 minutes we ran back and spent another 10, 15 minutes fishing.
Yeah, right outside the Lachute.
Trying to find the same structure that we were catching them off, but they just weren't there, or they just weren't eating what we were throwing. But
in that area,
no, when we were looking at maps that whole time, we thought we may have found a few, and when we ran up there, we realized it was not.
In Port Henry, are there?
Maybe if we ran further north, but we didn't go that much further than like from that bridge area.
Okay.
Well, there were bluff walls, but it was like bluff wall, and then it came down to the shore, and and dropped to like 3 feet, and then went flat for 100
The water
yards.
there is doing ridiculous things too. Like when I was there 2 weeks in a row, it was the water. Remember when we were there, the water was like
2 feet high.
Yeah, it was
Right.
And then when I got there the next weekend, it had dropped literally like 3 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so probably dropped another 2 by the time we got up there.
Dude, it was stupid because when that first day of our 4-day weekend, we just, like I said, we went and fished the Lachute, and vegetation hadn't grown up yet. Like everything was still kind of coming out of that late spring crap, or early spring, and where we were fishing, like I was driving over the top of what should have been land. And granted, there wasn't that much water, but there was enough. Yeah. I could float through it. And then last week, one of our subscribers, Bo Potato, he was like, dude, like literally everywhere you were fishing in that video is now land. And we went there. I was like, holy shit, he wasn't kidding.
The lake is gone.
I reached out to a gentleman I know that's a captain up there, and I just was like, hey, man, I just want to know what the water level looks like. He was like, it's actually kind of bad. It's below pool now. I was like, all right, well, that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And no, as Andrew said, we made the most of it. Why is Sean Miller calling me when he knows I'm on a stream? Mr. Miller?
Answer it.
No, he already. I think he like rang and immediately hung up.
He's like, oh shit.
I figured out something with the jig that was like working phenomenal for about an hour. Like, I don't know if it was just timing or if I really did figure out something or what. I'm trying not to overthink it too much, but it was great, and we made the most out of that. And then Andrew and I just kept picking away at him with spinnerbaits after that. But the big thing was like where we caught our first 2 fish. We pulled up, and like if anybody's familiar with the southern end of Champlain, it's it's like cove after cove after cove, right? And you just like cove point, and it just goes like that the whole friggin' way until you get down to like past like Benson area, and then it's kind of looks more like a river.
Yep.
And we were like, okay, well, let's focus on the vegetation. Literally every single cove we went to, because there's multiple tournaments going on down there, had multiple boats. And the first spot we really wanted to hit was the second spot we stopped at, and there was 10 boats in that cove.
That sounds right.
So we were like, let's just try it for a minute anyway. And where we caught those 2 fish, Andrew explained, it was just a little bit different because it had a lot more exposed rock, and the vegetation was a lot more sparse than everything else. And we went and found one other stretch of shore, which is where we actually really kind of hammered them for what, like 2 hours we were up there, Andrew?
Yeah, probably.
And it
We actually
replicated
caught
that
our
same
first
setup.
2 bass behind 8 other boats.
Now,
when they
behind
already fished.
behind 9 other boats.
Yeah, they already fished through that, and we caught 2 fish off that point.
Classic Lake Champlain.
Right.
That should be the advertisement for Lake Champlain. Do you want to be the 11th boat to fish an area? Lake Champlain.
So, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. Like, we figured out something that we were able to replicate in a couple of key areas. It panned out for us at least well enough to have a respectable showing at a tournament we had literally zero experience in. So I'm really, really happy with what we did up there. We talked about it after the fact. We were both stoked. Hats off to Sean and the Rutland Bass Club for putting on the tournament, because it was a great tournament. It was extremely well run. I had zero complaints. We all hung out after the fact, and he asked, like, what would you change? And literally the only thing I recommended to him was to add an optional first loser pool, just because it seems to be more common with every tournament I've been to.
Yeah.
And it's a cool option. You know, it's like a last minute thing. You roll up and they're like, hey, for an extra $10 it goes in the first loser pool. And you just like, for a $10 gamble, you're adding an extra paying spot to whatever it ends up being. It's like, that's an easy way.
It's not a bad one, yeah.
I actually met one of the original founders of the Rutland Bass Club today.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Don Adams.
I know that name.
Yeah, his son is what the hell's his son's name? They fish
Chris?
Chris Adams, yeah.
Not
that
I remember
Chris Adams.
what. You sure?
Yes.
Good.
Not that one. But yeah, they said they fish all up where we always go up in Vermont all the time. He said if we're ever up there, just give him a call. We can
All
meet
right,
up.
that'll work.
So.
I thought you were going to talk about the other Chris Adams. So I was going to be like, oh, you mean the one that thought he was better than us at literally everything, and we're just right behind him at that tournament, and you know his podcast was a pile of shit and it went nowhere. Sorry, I digress. What were we talking about?
Oh, you mean the kid that we beat with all smallmouth and a predominantly largemouth lake?
Yeah, I seem to recall exactly that happening, where we went up on his home waters and kind of beat the piss out of him. Yeah, something like that.
I don't think it's the same kid.
You know what? I'm normally not so crass, but guy was a dick.
A little bit of bad blood there. Huh?
Well, you know what? When someone is a dick to me for literally no reason other than spite, jealousy, whatever the hell you want to call it, and then like, you know what, man? It's one of those. My mama told me, treat others as you would like to, or do unto others as you would have done unto you. And well, apparently that dude wants to be treated like a dick because that's what he does to everybody else.
He asked for it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let's get into it. For everybody that's still watching, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you. As always, do me a favor if you haven't done yet, please like the stream. And without further ado, Dennis, thank you for being patient as we really digressed for way longer than I meant to. But we're here to talk about deep cranking tips. And this is something that I, at least myself, have been really trying to get better with the last several years. And I do recall last year you and I talked about this in the off season, leading into the season. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that a lot. And then Andrew and I were like, let's just go largey hunting this year. I'm like, yeah. And in the middle of the season, you're like, how's your deep cranking going? I'm like, haven't even tried it yet.
Haven't tied one on.
I did.
By
did
this,
last
you mean
weekend.
deep cranking. I did that a lot.
I tried it for a little bit this weekend, but
And?
nothing. Unfortunately. I think I got hit once, but
Stay tuned, Andrew. Stay tuned.
That's right. So
I'm tuned in.
where we were staying, there's the island, but the steep. Like what we were seeing, he was.
Yes.
I was like, "You should pick up the deep crank." He's like, "I'm going to pick up the deep crank." Nothing. But there was an attempt, so
That's good.
And there was a lot of
Progress.
fish there, and they should have eaten it, but they didn't.
no, they were being fickle little bastards.
Well, that
Yeah,
happens.
whatever.
Everybody in the world fishes that spot.
Yeah, that's
not wrong.
truth. So let's get into it. Tell you what, why don't you take a second and introduce yourself, because it's been a long while since you were last on the show.
Hot minute.
And cover a little bit about your history, too, about your professional fishing history, as it were.
Sure. So, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
You're
Go
welcome.
home.
So, that's it. All right. Good to meet you. Yeah. So, you guys have probably seen me on some of Sean's posts or fishing with Sean in one or the other's boat.
Or
We've
on
been
Bass and
friends
Beers.
for a long time,
Or
or on
Bass and
Bass and
Brews.
Beers. So I
Yeah.
also run the
Whatever the
Bass
hell.
and Beers page. But I've lived up here for most of my life. Spent my entire life bass fishing up here. So I've been fishing this area in New England for about 30 years. I got into tournament fishing really hard for a little while. Probably 10 years ago, 10 years ago. And I did that for, say, 5 or 6 years, and it kind of got burned out on it. I know I'm starting to get to a point now where I might fish one. I might fish one this year. We'll see.
Yeah?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't
All
know.
right.
I don't know. It wasn't for me because it didn't really match my style of fishing, because my style of fishing is trying to go out and catch as many as I can. And I would always get frustrated because I'd come in second or third or something, and I would get beat. I'd catch like 40, and I'd get beat by somebody that caught like 4, but one of them was a 5-pounder, and it would be like, yeah, but which one of us had a better day? And it's like, so like that. I don't know. That kind of frustrated me, and it was kind of like I don't care for the competition like some other people do, and like anyway. So at that same time, I was writing for On the Water magazine. I used to have a monthly column in On the Water magazine called Bass Blueprint. I actually started that. I think they still do it. But kind of those two things were happening at the same time, and it kind of became like every weekend I was fishing a tournament, and then I would go home and I would have to write an article, and then I had like the editor there that would reach out and want updates, and like, so it kind of turned fishing into like too much of a job for me at the same time. So it was kind of like, I'm not going to do any of this stuff anymore.
Yep.
Quit doing both of those things. Stopped fishing tournaments, stopped writing for the magazine, kind of just went out and tried to just have fun and do the stuff that I like to do, which is I like, as people are putting in there, I like to use JDM tackle and like high-end stuff like that. I like to fish crankbaits a lot. I like to fish deep a lot. So I spend a lot of time trying to force the things that I like to do. So I've gotten good at forcing the things that I like to do, like fishing deep and trying to catch them on moving baits out deep and things like that. So that's why I have so many. That's why I'm here.
Damn right.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're very welcome. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
It's something about throwing a small little bait out into the middle of the lake,
I know.
letting it sink down pretty freaking deep,
Yep.
and then just slow rolling, and then just thunk. It's like, whoa!
Yep.
You don't expect it at all, unless you have like some sort of forward-facing sonar, so you know
Right.
they're there. If you don't know and you're just fishing the conditions,
Yeah.
you have no idea if you're going to get bit or not, and it's when you do, it's freaking awesome.
Right. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like going out to Winnipesaukee in the middle of the summer and you're catching them in like 60 or 65 feet. And it's like, I'm in the middle of nothing out here. Like you would never think that there'd be a fish there and
Right.
find a school of a bunch of fish. Those
That's
things are cool.
one of my favorite things to do. That is when it looks like you're seemingly in the middle of nothing, but
Yep.
people don't realize you're like fishing the most magnificent hump you've ever seen. There's like glorious rocks all over it,
Right.
and then there's smelt stacked up around the sides, and you can see the bass darting in and out of it. It's like,
Yep.
And we don't catch anything for like 2 hours. It's true though; it always happens.
no, not always, especially not now.
Comes in waves.
True.
It
We-
ebbs and flows.
Yeah, we got to stick with the smallmouth fishing a little bit more this year too. Keep that that sword sharp. But on that note, I'm trying to think like where do we even start? You
Yeah.
should be telling me where do we even start with a topic like this?
Yeah. So You guys
Find
can't
deep
see
water.
this. But so first you go to a lake.
Well, let's take it from that perspective. Like, what would you consider the cutoff point of, like, what's deep cranking? And I know there might be some subjectivity, like, at kind of that breaking point, but, like, kind of an average. Like, what's that point where you're like, okay, that's definitively deep cranking?
Yeah, so for me, I would say, in my mind, deep cranking is anything greater than 12 feet. I would say medium crankbaits, how I have them labeled, at least in my boat, medium crankbaits are like 8 to 12. Yep. Shallow crankbaits are below 8. Deep is anything that's greater than 12. So I have a lot that go 12. I have ones that, as you've seen, that go up to 30 feet. So I would say
that one that goes 20. It's over there.
Yeah, there's a lot that go 20, but like that, like northeast bass fishing. So that's relative to how deep the lake is. But if I'm talking about the category of deep crankbaits, I would say that it's generally, in my mind, crankbaits that dive deeper than 12 feet.
I would concur with that, and I wouldn't argue against anybody that said it would start at 16 feet.
Right.
Either way, I mean, at the point, you're well outside of pretty much your standard crankbait that you could find pretty much anywhere. Yep. Once you get to that 12, 16-foot depth and deeper.
Yep. It's fair. So I guess, I mean, how do you want to start? You want to just say, like, where and when? I
would say let's start with the when, because I think that's probably always the biggest question that anybody has regarding any technique is, like, when do you start considering that? And, you know, whatever that starting point is, you know, now people know, oh shit, okay, well, damn, if you're telling me it's going to start in 2 weeks and I need to start ordering stuff now and getting ready and rigged.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the whens first.
So it works all year. There are times where it's much more effective, and it's one of the most effective things that you can do. But when you think about a crankbait, think about it similar to something like a chatterbait or a swimbait or something like that. Like, generally, those are reaction bites, and it's not that something is, or like a spinnerbait. It's not like something's looking at a spinnerbait and saying, "Oh, well, that looks exactly like something that I normally eat." Like, they're eating it because it's a reaction, and that's what crankbaits are as well. Is that you're triggering a reaction bite. So you can get them to react in any. I've caught fish on crankbaits in 40-degree water, but I would say when it becomes something that I start my day with would be around post spawn. I would say once you get around post spawn, then you have your fish that split. And everybody always says, like, oh, you have two different sections of fish after the spawn. There's the section that stay shallow and they kind of are around docks and things like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the fish that go offshore and they school, and they're usually the more like pelagic fish. Those are the fish that I go after when I'm deep cranking. Before that, you can't, like, I've caught them obviously pre-spawn. I've caught them, like, I'm not really catching spawning fish doing it, but you can catch them pre-spawn. I would just say that any pre-spawn, there are other baits that I typically like to use more than crankbaits, like jerk baits and things like that. Yep. But that's also because I really like fishing jerk baits. So you could catch them on a deep crank at the same time. But post-spawn is where I kind of stop starting with a jerk bait and I starting with a deep crankbait. But to put it in perspective, I caught 2 weeks ago, I caught that 6.24 pound smallmouth on a deep crank, and that was pre-spawn.
I was so happily angry for you about that. Or angrily happy. It's like, great! I'm so happy for you, Dennis!
Congrats!
I've only been chasing out my whole life!
Yeah, so
I know where you were.
That's true. Don't tell anyone, Andrew. I know where you live. Actually,
Buddy,
don't know where you live.
I've been there 4 years in a row, and I still haven't come close to sniffing 5.
It'll happen. Yeah, but that's 4 years. That's 4 years.
You were close.
That's 4 years compared to 19 years.
Yeah,
there.
I know.
So that
big
that's
fish
different.
just elude me. Wow. Big smallies, big largies been doing okay. Big smallies though, bastards. Anyway,
I had a rough start to the year, so you guys are both.
You've been doing a lot better than you think, and I'm only literally one fish ahead of you on the big fish count here.
How do I get in on this big fish count? Why am I left out?
Oh, I can put you on there. We're not doing anything special. We just keep track of it. I got a little Excel document.
Can I backtrack?
Yeah.
No.
There's no money on the line for this. It's just literally you keep track of, like, what our top 5 largies and smallies were for the year. Because I did it the last 2 years. The first year we did it, like, I kept it. And then I did it last year because I was like, our goal was focused on big freaking largemouth, trying to catch an 8. And so I kept going. So I have it. Yeah. If you want, you send me your weights, your top 5s, and I'll throw them in the spreadsheet.
I want in.
Like we randomly added our buddy Nate last year because he was curious where he stacked up with us. So
I'm in.
Send it.
Count me in.
Okay.
All right. So I would say right now is when you can probably go out and crush them deep cranking if you're doing the right stuff in the right areas. I haven't actually fished up in like the lakes region for a long time, but I imagine that up there it's probably the end of the spawn right now, I would think, right? Have you been up there?
From what I've been hearing, yes, I would say so. Either the very tail end of spawn or very, very early post spawn.
Okay.
Depending upon the body of water. But yeah, for like all the big lakes, I think Winnie, you could probably still find them in all 3 phases, but I would be willing to bet there's not that many bedding fish left.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
No. Based off what we saw on Sunday, there's probably actually still quite a few bedding fish
I
up
saw
there.
somebody post on Facebook that they caught like 140 fish up there, and it's like, okay, well, you were obviously catching them off beds.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Guy was standing over the same patch of 5 beds for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Pluck, pluck, pluck.
What you mean is you caught a fish 140 times. So I would say right now, so if you're interested in doing this, now is the time to buy stuff. Now is the time to try it. And what you should look for when you go there, I saw somebody post on there, can you deep crank around vegetation? Yes, you can. It has to be factored into the depth. So if you are fishing in 20 feet of water and you have grass on the bottom that comes up 3 feet, then you're not really looking to hit 20 feet. You're looking to hit 17 feet. You're looking to factor that into your depth. What you want to do if you're fishing around grass is you want to kind of intermittently tick the top of that grass, and you want to almost want it to hang up a little bit slightly, and then you want to kind of let it float out of there. And that's usually when you'll get your bites. You don't want to just dredge it right through the grass because it'll immediately become ineffective because you'll just get covered in grass and it won't work. So it does work. Just factor it in. It's harder to do that than it is to fish rock or something, because rock you can just crash right into the bottom. So you just have to be a little more cognizant and aware of the depth and how deep your crankbait goes. Anyway, so what I look for when I'm fishing a deep crankbait, I go to a lake. I would say the best days to do it are when there is wind or when there is current. So when there's wind or current, the stronger usually the better, and it makes boat positioning and it can make casting harder, but it makes the fishing better. And the reason that it makes the fishing better, especially for deep cranking, is that it positions the fish so that you know exactly where they should be. So basically I'm looking for areas where you're in the strongest wind or you're in the strongest current, and there's some structure on the bottom that will create some sort of break or change in that wind or current. So if you have current that's ripping down a bank, even if it's wind blown current, and you have a hump that goes from 20 feet up to 15 feet, you wouldn't think it, but that hump will actually impact the current in that area. And the fish that are in that area will either position directly on top of that hump or directly behind the hump on the downwind or down current side of it. So you essentially want to get down current of that. You want to cast your crankbait up current, bring it with the current or the wind across that point, and that's typically when you'll get your bite. And the thing that I would say is the hardest thing to grasp when you're crankbaiting is that right there, is that it's that angle and how to align with the current and how to align with the wind. If you're fishing a crankbait and you're casting with the wind, then that means that you're reeling it back against the wind. And that means that typically if you think of a fish, I'm going to use this as a fish. If you think that this is a fish and the current is going,
I got to blow you up.
It does look like a fish.
For demonstration purposes.
So I'll use 2 things. How about this? So if this is your fish and the current is going this way, your fish wants to sit like this in the current or the wind so that it can kind of stay here and it's not getting blown down this way. It's not going to be able to stay still if it's this way and the current's blowing it. It needs to move forward, so it needs to sit like this. And that means that you want your crankbait to be coming to the fish like this. If your crankbait is coming past the fish like this, typically all you're doing is spooking that fish, and they don't get a good look at it, and you don't get as many bites. If the fish can see your bait moving towards it, one, you're going to get more bites, and it's going to look like everything else that it's eating, because what that wind and current does also is it creates kind of like a little funnel of food and stuff that's bringing it right into the fish's face. So I would say that's one of the most important things when you're deep cranking is making sure that you're going with the current so that it looks natural to the fish and that the fish can actually see it.
Yes.
Andrew, did you have a question?
I did not.
Oh,
I agree with everything you said.
I gotta bring Andrew back to full.
bring him back.
Hey.
Bring him back in.
While you were showing baits, I wanted to make sure people could see it, so I minimized him. I miniaturized my
Fair.
friend.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. So I would say a couple of tips that I would have. So like I said, the number one thing is you want to really lean towards this technique when it's windy or when there's current. You can catch them if it's not windy or if there's not current, but they spread out more. You can use it as a search bait and just kind of run bank and just like
It's all good.
just like make casts, along the bank and try to hit structure and stuff like that. And I've caught tons of fish doing that, just hitting a random isolated piece of wood or a rock or something like that. But like when I go out, I want to try to find a school of fish, and I want to try to find where I can get into a spot and catch 30 fish in that spot rather than one fish here and then another fish in another mile. And that's what windy days does for you, because it positions them all so you know exactly where they'll be. A couple of other things to consider is that when you watch like the Bassmaster Elite Series or something like that, I don't even, I think that's still what they call it. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
And
only the name of the Opens changed. It's not just the Opens. It's the EQ series, the Elite Qualifier.
Excellent. So if you watch a lot of those shows or whatever, like what those people are typically doing is they're mimicking shad, and a lot of times they're in Falcon Lake or something like that, and they're mimicking gizzard shad.
Yep.
And that's what sexy shad, the color, was made after, and those are typically bigger bait fish. They look like a sexy shad. And up here, you'll have some lakes where we have shad, or not shad, but we have alewife, which is basically a herring, which is basically a shad. Kind of. But most of the places that we fish up here, especially the smaller bodies of water, you're mimicking perch, or you're mimicking your yellow perch or white perch or crappie or bluegill or something like that. And that's something to consider, is that I do a lot of crankbaits that try to look like a perch, and typically the perch that these fish are feeding on when they're schooled up like that, it's not a largemouth that's eating your piz or whatever you call it.
That's a Pats.
Pats, whatever.
It's all good.
It was a P. I got the P right. But it's it's not something that's lurking in a log and waiting for a 2-pound perch to swim by to eat it. These are fish that are kind of more pelagic, and they're eating schools of perch. And a school of perch, it's usually, sometimes it is, but usually it's not the really big perch. It's the little small guys, the little 2 to 3 inch perch.
Well, micro perch.
Right. And that's something that I feel like isn't considered, and there just aren't a lot of baits out there that match that well. So the thing that I have really tried to focus on are finding baits that get down deep to that 15 to 20 to 25 foot range, but then are still small. And that's why I do have a 6XD here for comparison, but that's why I don't use 6XDs and I don't use 10XDs. I do have a really big bait out here because it's cool, but I typically try to find the smallest bait I can that will get down deep. So this is a 6XD, for example, and the bait that I caught that 6-pound smallmouth on is the one right below here, and they go just about the same depth. So that is something that's really important to consider.
Hey, it's the same thing. I think it's a KVD 2.5.
See?
Just for added visual reference here on overall sizes.
So this is a really important point, is that you can see here I've used the hell out of this 6XD, and I've caught plenty of fish on it, but I will say, using a bait that's smaller like this, and after I've gotten used to the availability of these baits and kind of knowing that they're smaller and they're a little bit lighter, and having to adjust my equipment accordingly, I'll probably never use a 6XD again. Now that I know that these or I know how to use these, I guess.
Yeah.
I gotta stop doing that. I'm sorry. So I think that's a really important point, is that the size plays a big difference, especially if you're fishing smallmouth. I do a lot of deep cranking for smallmouth, and you can catch smallmouth on big baits. But if you want to go out and catch 30 or 40 smallmouth deep cranking, you're typically not going to do that on a really big bait. But you can do that on some of these smaller baits that will get down there because they're not used to seeing that. There are people up here. This is an OSP Blitz EXDR. Thank you. That's what she said. It needed to be. Somebody needed to say.
Oh, Andrew's still tiny. Sorry.
Andrew's normal size.
I'm back
Welcome
again.
back, Andrew. Maybe you can put that in the chat, like the name, because they're not going to remember what I'm saying.
What was that? The little one?
OSP,
They're not going to remember me. I was
little
so
one.
small.
Why you got to call it little one?
Because it is. It's little. Look at it. It's tiny. It's minuscule. It's adorable.
Blitz. No.
No, that's fine. The adorable sized one is the OSP Blitz
Yeah. EXDR.
XDR.
Yeah.
There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So when I think the thing that gives you an advantage in doing this is that if you go to Walmart or you go to any store up here, they'll have 6XDs and they'll have some of those deeper Strike King baits. So 99% of the people that live in New England, if you're deep cranking and you're going to try it for 5 minutes, it's going to be a 6XD because that's what you can get at any of the stores up here. So if the fish see it, that's what they see. I can guarantee you that the places where I fish, I'm probably the only person that's ever thrown this bait. And
Yep.
I would say there are a couple that bait selection still waiting on the coordinates.
I won't tell you. I promise.
So I do think that is a distinct advantage, and there are some other baits that have come out, like this is the Mega Bass Z3. This one goes down to 14 feet, and this is even smaller than the Blitz. So I think that there are considerations of depending on the size of the bait fish that you know they're eating. If you catch one and you can see what they're eating, or if you just know, like, I'm in a smaller body of water where there probably aren't a lot of really big bait fish.
Yep.
That's something to consider.
I can buy you a little more room for your hand right there. Grab. Oops, I didn't mean to hit that. Back here. Tilt this. No. Just tilt up like that, and then you can grab this and tilt it down a little bit. Oh. You're welcome.
Oh. Check this out.
Shut up.
Oh, Andrew.
Yeah, but you sound like crap compared to us.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Did somebody? I think somebody asked something about color. Is that something?
I did see that, but I just completely unrelated to everything. I'm sitting here talking to Boat Potato, and I've seen some other, like, we met our subscriber, goes by Z20 Fishing on here, and I got to meet him in real life.
Yeah, Gunner Outdoors 207 said.
I'm getting there. I for the life of me, I really wish I could see everybody's real names, because I feel wicked embarrassed when I see you people, like, at tournaments, and I'm like, I don't know who you are.
No clue who you guys are.
Because I feel like we should know who Boat Potato is, but I haven't placed. I don't know what his real name is, and it's like,
It's a great name, though.
it is a fantastic name. It's right
Like,
up there
if
with
MD
Donk
came up
Swampy.
to me, I would have no idea who he was unless he had like a purple
Maybe that
hat
is
on
his name.
shirt.
Maybe his first name is Boat Potato.
We'll figure it out one of these days. All right. So I saw a few questions on color and size, although you kind of answered. Oh, well, for me anyway, you answered a question I really had, and it was about, like, when you
What matters?
what
more?
makes you decide on size and everything. So
Okay.
Gunnar did ask some questions. Was there anybody above him that I saw one, like, really early that I meant to pick up earlier? I'm just trying to find it. Oh, it was like hella early.
It was last week.
It was. Oh, it might be like way too early. All right, never mind. If someone asked a question very, very early, throw it back up again. But Gunnar, there it is. As far as bait selection, which matters more, color or sound, as far as getting the most reactions? And then second comment, I get that it will depend on conditions some days, but on average, what matters more, color or sound?
In my mind, I would say sound. I think that this is going to be triggering, but I don't really buy into color in a lot of situations as much as some other people do. Crankbaits are, I mean, you can't see the table, but I'll show some of these ones in a little bit. And the majority of these colors, I use a lot of crazy colors. I use a lot of clown in jerkbait fishing as well. My favorite jerkbait color is clown, and one of my favorite crankbait colors is clown. The one that I caught the 6-pounder on, it's called vanilla chartreuse. It's basically like white with chartreuse, and there isn't a bait fish swimming around that looks like vanilla chartreuse. And there isn't a bait fish swimming around that looks like clown. It has to do with you're getting a reaction strike. They're not looking at it and saying, "Ooh, that looks exactly like what I've been eating." It's, "Oh, that's kind of the same size as what I've been eating," and it's just a quick, like, it triggers something in them that they have to bite it. It's not a.
I think it's mostly size and cadence.
I agree.
don't think color really has much to do with it,
Yes.
besides maybe possibly getting them to visually be like, "Oh shit, what is that?" And
Right.
then,
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that when you're crankbait fishing, number one thing for me is depth. What are we doing?
Right there.
Best crankbait color is the one you have most confidence in. Yep.
I like that.
Sure.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Truth, which is why. Can I show this one off? Were you holding this for any specific reason?
Nah.
Okay, that's why I always go to this. Perch, baby.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I could have done this too. Perch, baby. I get so many examples of this.
I thought I had a crankbait up here somewhere.
Did you adequately answer that question
I
before I move on?
I don't know. Maybe they can chime in.
There was nothing
I
else that
kinda-
they'd
I
asked.
kinda have a
You can
crankbait.
read over there too on that side if you
Okay.
need it. But that's like current where this one kind of going back through the chat.
Okay. But yeah, to answer your question, I think color matters to an extent, but I think that number one thing is depth. Number two is action or cadence, speed, and then I would say sound, and then I would say color. Like I think color is probably in a crankbait the least important consideration. Granted, I have a million different colors, but I have been out there when you're on a good crankbait bite. The thing where color may come into play is if I've gone down a stretch and I've caught like 12 in one pass on a color and then I stop getting bit, then I'll go back with a different color and I might catch one or two more. But it's not, I've never really had a day crankbait fishing where it's like, I can't even get bit on this color. And then I tie on another color and it's just magical and I catch 30 of them on it. Like it's usually, you can get them on a crankbait, you can get them on a crankbait. And like you may get a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on some of those other things. But I have not had a day where I've rotated through colors and then magically been like, that's it. And now it's lights out.
Okay. All right. I can buy that. Not like soft plastics.
Not like soft, no, very different than soft. Because soft plastics, they're usually slow and
Yeah, they've got time to
right,
look
they have
at
time
it.
to look at it. They can see it, and like they can key in on like, oh, it doesn't have an orange claw, like a crankbait like that's flying by them in windy conditions or current conditions. Like they're not really dissecting the color of this thing. Like they're biting it because their body is telling them to bite it.
Yeah. Gotcha. I like this question. This is something Andrew and I have talked about a lot, and I believe Andrew actually did it one day. Have you ever Carolina rigged a small crankbait to get it deep?
I have not.
I don't
Square
remember
bill.
where reading that. I remember reading it somewhere, but I don't remember where. And it was probably on Bassmaster or something. They were talking about that, and I read that ages ago, a long time ago.
Cool
And I
idea.
was like, huh. Yeah, because you can tie on essentially like a 3-foot leader and then like a 1-ounce Carolina rig weight, and you get a little tiny like KVD 1.5 square bill, get
Yeah.
down to the bottom and
Not a bad
40
idea.
feet deep.
I'm gonna do it now.
It's cool. I didn't catch anything on it, but it was cool to do it because like you pause it and you can, obviously rises up, and then when you start going again, you kind of a little snap and it kind of smacks back down into the bottom and then starts going.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It-
And
it-
you have the extra, like with the weight and the bead and everything, it's just extra commotion down there.
Yeah, like it sounds like a stupid thing to do, but when you really think about what you can do with that, it's actually really intriguing.
It probably would create, like Andrew said, the commotion will probably get them to go over to it too. Like how a normal
You got-
Carolina rig works.
Yeah, they're like looking
Yeah.
at the weight going by.
Yeah.
They're like,
That's probably exactly what it would look like.
they just come in and smack them in the head.
So, Sir Altitude did ask, any recommendations for cheaper deep cranks aside from the Strike King's 6XD? I hate losing a $25 Megabass lure. Buddy, I lost 4 Vision 110s on one day. Trust me, I know what you mean.
Yeah. I brought this. Oh, I brought this specifically for that question. So this is what's the name of it? Spro Little John, Baby DD.
Those things are awesome.
Yeah. So flat-sided crankbait. It's got kind of, you're not going to be able to hear it, but.
Oh, that's more like a solid, like one solid knock.
Yeah, feel it though. It feels like it's like coated
I
in
thought you were
rubber.
going to do it for
almost.
him.
Oh, shut up. Oh yeah, you're not kidding.
Thanks, Andrew.
Welcome.
Oh, yeah, you can kind of hear it.
Yeah, it's hard to hear, but it's got like a really unique sound to it. They're pretty inexpensive. Spro, they're what I don't know what they are, $10, $12, something like that. So you're not jumping all the way up like these ones that I've been talking about. They're $20, $22, and Mega Bass ones are $25. But if you're looking to spend a little bit less, I've caught a ton of fish on this one. They make good colors, especially this called Northern Perch. It looks. Did you already show this?
I did.
Okay, so pretty accurate perch color. They work. They dive down 15, 16 feet. All right, where are we?
Kevin Doyle and Gunner asked the same question. Thoughts on the Berkeley Dredger?
I have not used it.
Oh.
I'm not a. I don't want to cause
He's
issues for you.
just like our friend Dave. He's bougie, okay? My man is a JDM fan.
I'm a JDM
It's got to
fan.
be sexy looking, or it's not going to catch his attention.
I've got some big issues with Berkeley, so I don't support that company.
I'm laughing because I know what we're talking about because we were just talking about this the other day, especially me going to iCast, but I can't say anything. Just let that dog lie. Scott did ask, how are you retrieving at that depth? Pause or straight cranking? I forget at what point that question came up.
Yeah, so
I guess I'm assuming just in general at depth, at deeper depth.
Honestly, honestly, striking right now, I'm looking, has probably like the best deal on their deep diving crankbaits. They're like on Tackle Warehouse, they're like $6. They were
cheap.
originally like anywhere from $8 to $12, but now they're
For-
all like $6.
What depth?
12,
Nice.
16, 14.
I do know for a fact that Ben's Tackle Shack down in Leicester, Mass. has those. He has actually
they have a
quite a
bunch of them.
significant selection of crankbaits, period, but especially deep diving crankbaits. So if you guys are interested, you can,
Yeah.
I mean, they have the store front online, benstackleshack.com, but you can also go down to the store in Leicester, Mass. We were just down there 2 weeks ago. It's a great store.
And he's got
By all
some
means,
sexy
head down
balsa
there.
ones too.
Yeah, that's true. He's got actually a really good balsa selection.
and it's near Treehouse.
And it's very near Treehouse. See? 2 for 1.
Michael
Anyway.
Bradley hit the nail on the head there. That's the answer.
Oh, wait. This one? There are other colors than chartreuse blackback?
No, the new one right here.
Oh, not a
all the way
fan of
above.
copycats.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
that.
go. Yeah.
Sorry.
There it
All right.
is.
So we were with Scott. How are you retrieving at that depth? Pause or straight cranking?
All right. So it depends on if I'm hitting bottom or not. So when you're fishing a crankbait, the slower you reel it, the deeper it will go. So you want to give it more time to kind of dig into the water. Think about it kind of like digging down as you're reeling it. That's what the bill is doing. So the slower you reel it, the deeper you'll be able to get it. Obviously, the longer you cast it, the deeper you'll be able to get it. So I reel it really slow to get it down as far as I can. And I'm like these crankbaits that go 16 feet. I'm usually casting them as far as I possibly can into the wind, and then I'm like standing on the edge of the boat, sticking my rod tip down in the water and trying to get it to go down as deep as I can possibly get it. And I'm typically reeling it slow until I'm hitting the bottom, until I know that I'm hitting the bottom and I can feel it, and then I'm speeding it up, and then pausing when I feel that I'm hitting like a change in the bottom. So you'll feel that you're kind of going along the bottom and you'll feel like that gravelly grinding a little bit. And then every now and then you'll hit something bigger and it'll be kind of a like dunk, and then you'll lose the bottom for a second. And every time that happens, I'll pause it. And typically I would say a large percentage, I don't want to, maybe 70%, I'm making up that number, maybe 70% of bites will happen after you get that dunk and then you pause it. And when you go to reel it again, there'll be a fish on it. That's often when they get it, because they'll set up those things that are on the bottom are current breaks and they're things like that. And that they'll set up right behind those things. So you're reeling with the current, you dunk over that thing. There's typically a fish waiting on the other side of it. And they'll hit it when you're paused.
Yeah, or even
like
just that
fishing.
slight deflection.
It's like fishing square bills. I'm sure
It's
you
like-
guys
yes,
have all fished square
exactly,
bills, and
yes.
you're doing up shallow, and you're going through, let's say, like a sandy beach or something, and you smack into a rock, you pause it,
Yep.
they come and hit it.
Right.
I mean,
Except you're in 20 feet of water.
But
Same
you're
idea.
way deeper. That's all it is.
Same idea. The exception. Oh, sorry.
No. It was kind of on that story. Like when we were up on Champlain a month ago, and that third day, the first day he was up there, we were crushing him on a jig. And remember, we were talking about fishing the current. You're like, no, get off the bottom, go with the current. And we went in an area with no current. We crushed him. I came back and showed you, like, I wore a flat in the backside of that jig, and you just shake your head. But that was literally how we were getting bit. We were going through the rocks and, like, not popping it, but, like, cracking it along, like, at us, just trying to scoot it forward.
Like a tube.
And, yeah. And as soon as we hit a rock, it'd stop, and you pop it over, and then they were on it right after that. And Sunday, we were up in Vermont. Before we left, there was one, I got stuck, and I'm hung up on that rock hard. And I can see a largemouth sitting right there, and I'm just sitting there bouncing the shit out of it. And his nose was an inch off that jig, just sitting there. And I got just close enough, it popped free. And literally the moment it came off that rock, like it probably would have shot up a foot. All it did was it had time to get off the rock, and he was just like, and I got to watch the whole thing, which was awesome.
That's pretty cool. All right, so the thing that I was going to say, the exception is if you're fishing suspended fish, or if you're fishing grass. If you're fishing grass, you're not hitting bottom usually. You're hitting the top of grass intermittently. And if you're fishing suspended fish, you're not hitting bottom. You're fishing above the suspended fish. So I've caught them on crankbaits when they're in 40 feet, and I have a crankbait that's going down 20 feet because the fish are suspending 20 feet down or 25 feet down. And in those cases, you don't have anything to hit. So they're still going to bite when your crankbait changes its cadence. Very rarely will you be it's kind of like a spinnerbait. Like very rarely are you reeling a spinnerbait or a crankbait in just a steady, slow, straight retrieve, and a fish just comes up and overtakes it. It does happen. Every now and then it'll happen. But the majority of times you have to do something to it. You have to hit something, you have to change the speed, you have to change the cadence, slow it down, pause it, speed it up, jerk it, something like that. And that change will cause the fish to bite. So if you're fishing suspended fish, you're not hitting the bottom. You have to do that yourself. So you're reeling your crankbait down to above where the suspended fish are, and I try to do as much as I can to make it seem like what the crankbait would do if I was banging into stuff on the bottom. So I'll reel it really fast and then stop and then jerk it and give it a jerk and then let it pause for a second and then do it again. And like I'm fishing it very erratically when I'm fishing suspended fish to try to just get it to do that right turn or that right pause in front of a fish so that it just triggers it, because you don't have the bottom to help you with it.
Yep. No, it makes sense. I dig it. I did see, we were talking about the whole crankbait on Carolina rig, and I saw Jason and, hang on, who else said it? It was Jason Basson magazine. Oh, and Dave Richardson. Thank you. Hank Parker did a show on it many years ago. Thank you both. So I was trying to figure out where. I used to watch Hank Parker all the time.
I like that comment. I can't hear it.
I can't. And I did, Sir Altitude. Happy Father's Day to Andrew, who is obviously the big daddy of all this racket.
That's true.
Excuse me? What happened? What racket?
You know what he's saying, Andrew. Don't play coy.
No, I legitimately don't know.
Don't play the laughing boy, Andrew.
I'm a dad?
Yeah, you might be.
You did start throwing some dad jokes recently, and I began to wonder.
Well, my mom told me one earlier. I was going to tell you, and I forgot it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Was it?
You're going to fire it at me at a random time.
Go ahead, continue. I've got to remember this.
Okay. All right. Mark did ask, do you guys use the 5.3 to 1 bait casters to help get the deep divers deeper? I don't.
I don't either. I use it. I can't stand it. I mean, you probably would do better with it, but I'm just so impatient that I can't. I use a 6 to 1, and even that is very slow. But for the majority of it, if I'm fishing and I'm hitting bottom and I know that that's how I'm going to be fishing, I'll use a 6 to 1. If I'm going out, so I would say it's rare that you go out and you expect that you're going to fish for suspended fish, but like I talked about earlier, I fish Winnie a lot in the middle of the summer, and like there's going to be a bunch of fish suspended. You know what you're going to be doing that day. I'm going to be doing this, and you're going to be using a Demiki rig and stuff like that. And when it's doing that, I'll use an 8 to 1, and I'll use that just to try to be able to get more start and stop speed and more reaction when I'm fishing suspended fish with this.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, I use a 6 to 1.
Nice. Andrew, thank you much, buddy. Have a good night.
See ya.
Not you, Andrew. Shut up.
No.
All right, Andrew, get out. Yeah.
So, DJ, I'm glad you brought this up. Have you shown off the 30-footer?
I have not.
Okay, so for comparison's sake, Dennis brought a bunch of stuff. Which one is that again?
This is the OSP Magnum EXDR.
Okay, and hang on, because I'm just curious, because I can't remember what this was, but I think this is like 3.5. I can't see it. I actually have like my scale I use for like weighing pack. Oh wow, 2.8. Okay, so
And what was this?
that was 1.8 ounces. So to DJ's comment, what pound test are you using? This is my Pat's, my swim bait, right? It's 2.8 ounces. Oh, hang on. Let me do explosion so that people can see this better. There we go. Okay. So that's my Pat swim bait, 2.8 ounces. Look at the size of that freaking crankbait beside it. Like that's a big crankbait.
Yeah.
And that goes down to 30 feet, you said?
This one goes down to 30 feet.
That's
Yeah.
insane. That's 1.8 ounces. And that's literally the question I asked him as like before the stream started. He's getting everything set up and I saw that. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't even know what line or rod to throw that on, but especially line. Like rod I could figure out. But the line is what would really make me nervous about something like that. So, I mean, for the bigger ones and any of these other smaller ones, I think that's, 10, 12 pound you get away with all day long. But if
Yep.
you're throwing like these 1 ounce and heavier deep diving crankbaits, I know lighter line is still your friend because that thinner line diameter helps you get baits down deeper. But goddamn, how light can you go on that?
15 on that.
Yeah, I would say on this one, I wouldn't throw it in less than 14. I would say 14 is probably where I would go. When I use this one, so this is a Realis G8720A, and this goes like 22 feet down. And that's a pretty big bait too. It's not like the other one, but it's pretty big. And that one I'll use 14. And that's typically because I know that where I'm fishing these, there's a bunch of stuff on the bottom. Like I'm not really fishing them in like clear bottom, and I know that if I'm using a big bait and I'm down there and it gets hung up, that I'm not going to be able to get it loose with 10-pound line.
Yeah.
So you can cast it with 10-pound line, but like if you get stuck, you're screwed. So I typically go 14 on those, but everything else I go 12 usually. If I need to get really deep for some reason, then I'll go 10 if it's on a standard crankbait.
Gotcha. See, I feel like for a bait like that, those bigger ones that are an ounce or bigger, to get 10-pound on that, you're probably throwing like an 8-foot rod. Something that's got
You can lob
like,
it.
Yeah, like you can just load the rod up versus the bait, and you've got a lot of guides to help kind of spread the load of that and just sling it, like slingshot it.
Yeah. And while we're talking about this, the one thing I want to touch on, because it contradicts everything that I've said in everything that I've said so far is you want to use something that's as small as it can be and go as deep as it can. And then I have like the biggest thing in the world right here. So the difference about this one is that this goes 30 feet. And it's the only crankbait that I have. Mans used to make one. Mans used to make a 30 plus, but it was like throwing your bathtub. And like this is the only. It's big, but it's the only reasonable sized crankbait that I've ever seen that goes legitimately, like, will easily hit 30 feet deep. So that's something that I have confidence in because even though it's big, those fish that are down in 30 feet have literally never seen a crankbait down there because there aren't any other crankbaits that go 30 feet down.
You're not wrong there.
So that's why I'm okay with that really
Square
big
bill
one.
on a Carolina rig.
Except for Andrew. Yeah, as long as Andrew's not fishing in front of me with a Carolina rig square bill.
I can just see Dennis out there, Craig, and no fish down there has ever seen this, and they're all having PTSD from Andrew clacking along a 2-ounce weight, little 1.5 KVD on the back.
All right.
And Andrew hitting him with his Carolina rig weight.
Look
Right
out.
upside the head. I did see this. Another one from Mark was a good one. Do you change out your trebles on your crankbaits? I never have, not once in my life. Usually by the time I need to change my treble hooks, I just buy new bait. Because at that point, the bait itself is just dead. I never change out my trebles. I'll sharpen hooks every
I
once in a
usually
while, but that's
break
it.
a lip off before I need new trebles.
That's usually me, too.
Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, I use Mega Bass and OSP baits that come with like ultra good hooks. So I haven't needed to. I would say if you're using like a Berkeley dredger, then I would change out the hooks.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Do you carry a file or an
course.
actual hook sharpener with you?
Of course. Yes. And I'll do that a lot with crankbaits, because if you look at the tip, I'm going to use this one for example. If you look at the tip of this, like this thing has battered earth with this. So like the hook is hitting the bottom at some point, and like the hook, like you can feel on there, like the hook is dull on that. Like that's not.
Oh yeah.
That's not what you would want if you're fishing a tournament or something. You got money on the line, like so. I do sharpen the hooks, especially that your front hook does get dull on these. So have a hook file with you, sharpen it. I would say if you're using a quality bait, you probably don't need to change out the hook. I feel like that's like I don't know. People that change their hooks on everything, I feel like it's too much.
Yeah, I remember reading. It was actually probably several pros on the elites. This was like 10 years ago. And there was like a big crankbait tournament coming up, and they were all talking like, "Oh my god, I had to go and change all my hooks because I didn't change them from like 2 months ago." I'm like, "What?
Yeah,
that seems excessive."
Right.
Even
yeah. When I'm sponsored by Gamakatsu and they're paying me, I'll change my hooks out on my baits. But until then, I'm okay.
Speaking of
well, the baits are made with those hooks, so it's like
right. I would say like
why would I want to mess with what's
right. The OSP, like I have OSP uses like Ryugi treble hooks, which is like a really good company, and like I've changed other crankbaits to the kind of hooks that OSP uses, but like they come with those, so like I'm not going to change them out.
Right. DJ had another good question, or 3D Fishing had another good question. DJ, I'm sorry, I should be calling you that. Same with you, Mark, Northeast Bass Fishing. But 3D Fishing asks, clips or loop knots?
Split ring.
Yeah, but then what do you?
Just
tie to the split ring.
I tie directly to the split ring.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't ever use a clip. I would say if you don't have a split ring and you just have the eye, like I don't know what you call this, the eye.
Yeah. Yep.
The eye of the crankbait, the line tie. I would use a loop knot on that, but I would much rather. It's much stronger if you just put a split ring on it.
Smart.
Take one of your split rings off one of your other baits.
That's exactly what. Yeah.
I can't get this.
Innovative.
Yes.
Jerry said, we always swap out the back hook, and we will sometimes use suspend dots to reach further.
Yeah.
Which
that
is
happens.
Funny because I've used suspend dots to keep a shallow running bait down and like suspended in very specific applications in early spring.
Yep.
Just to slow that rise rate down significantly. And it has worked magically.
That's it doesn't have it on there anymore, but when that's a Winnie thing too.
Yeah.
A little tidbit: if you're fishing suspended fish at Winnie and you're cranking on top of them, you put a suspend strip on your bait. You get it to stop right in front of them, and then it just kind of
nice.
And that yeah, it does the opposite of what you would expect it to do. Juicy tidbit.
Yeah, JP. If you fish a lot of riprap, your hooks can get dull pretty quickly.
Yes, they can.
What were we gonna say, Andrew?
I just said tidbit.
Tidbit.
Juicy tidbit.
Tidbit.
Tell you what, if anybody else has any questions, start throwing them out. But for those that are still watching, obviously, thank you again, as always. And if you're here and you haven't hit like on the stream, please do so. Like I hate asking, but at the same time, I know it's important, not because people are like, I'm not going to do it unless they ask. It's just people show up and they start watching, and it just doesn't come to mind. So it's just a friendly little reminder for people to do it.
Even I like it.
Aw, thanks.
So nice, Andy.
I actually watched that change. That was nice.
Okay. And just like
oh,
son of a
unsubscribe.
Northeast Bass Fishing. I will replace the front hook with a red hook on occasion to change things up. I actually did that once or twice when I first started crankbaiting, and I wasn't sure if it was making a difference. And I ran out of red hooks, and I just said, "Screw it."
Dennis, how hard is it to get that? So when you get the crankbait right below the boat and you're bringing it up, it's like,
oh yeah, like you're pulling up a freaking boot.
That 30-footer, that must be pretty wild.
You gotta use the right rod for sure on those deep road. Even like a 6XD, like a 6XD. So
like my 6 to 14 ounce rod.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. The thing to think about also is the bill. Like if you look at this one, so the amount that a crankbait pulls has to do with the bill shape, not necessarily the bill length. So like, I don't know if they can see this, but if you look at this, so this one 6XD, this one is the big giant 30-footer. The 6XD will actually pull probably more than this one because of how wide the bill is on here. Just the bill, well, the bill is wide on here too, so this one will probably pull more. But comparison-wise, if they were similar size, this one would pull much more because the bill is wide. And what that does is it causes the crankbait to wobble like this when it's going through the water, because the water has to move so far on the bill that it has to go this far to pull it off that side and then go that far to pull it off the other side. So your crankbait is kind of doing this when it's going through the water, where if you have a bill that's really narrow like this and doesn't come to a big bulbous end,
Yeah, it's
then
more streamlined. It's
more,
big, but it's consistent.
right. It's yes, I said bulbous. So then it's not bulbous on the end, and it's not forcing it to do this. It's more forcing it to do this. It's more forcing it to kind of flash like that rather than do this. So when you reel this through the water, it's not doing this. It's doing this. So it actually, like these ones that have these longer, straighter bills, like a lot of the Megabass crankbaits are like that. They don't pull as much. And another little juicy tidbit is that those are the kinds of ones. This is a Megabass Deep 6. If you're fishing suspended fish and you're trying to get them to bite something, these are the kind of ones that you want to use for that, because the other thing that you can do when it has a narrow bill like this is you can reel it much, much, much faster. You can't reel a 6XD fast because it's doing this through the water, and you just can't move it that fast because it's moving too much side to side. It's pulling too much. But something like this that's just flashing, you can rip that through the water really quick because it doesn't have a lot of resistance.
What was
Tidbit
the name
for
of that
you,
one?
Andrew.
That
What's it,
30,
what?
That 30 footer. What is that one?
It's an OSP Magnum EXDR.
You're going to buy one, aren't you? He just smiles. Can you get two?
OXDR?
EXDR. Magnum EXDR.
So wait, Joe D'Souza, I see your comment, rod reel setups. I want to get to that in a second. But really quick, Gunner did ask, top three fluoro brands for cranking. I will say on this,
Who ain't you?
I was a cigar guy for the last 8-9 years. And I forget what the hell I was even using before that. No, actually, I think I've been a cigar guy for the last 10 years. Oh, I tried P-Line and stuff. I tried Sunline, which I know a lot of people like, but I had one bad year with it.
Those two P-Line boxes have been sitting there.
Yeah, no,
I've had
P-Line
them
sucks.
since
I don't
before I
like
moved
P-Line.
in here.
Yeah.
And that was
No,
a long
P-Line
time
is
ago.
not good.
It's terrible, but that's what people first told me to try. Like, oh, Jesus, 2007 now. It's the first year I got my apartment. I moved out of my parents' house.
It's because it's cheap.
Yeah, well, yeah, it sucked. It absolutely sucked. But so I went through P-Line, I tried Sunline and everything, and finally I went to Cigar, and I loved it. I had zero complaints. I did Red Label for years, then started making more money in my career. I went to Abrasics and Invisix, and I did Tatsu for a little bit, and I loved everything in Abrasics and Invisix. Invisix was my go-to for cranking. And then last year, we switched to Defiant for all of our heavy swim bait stuff. I got some 23.6 pound soft casting for all our swim baits. And the heavy line like that, the memory can be so-so after a couple months, but I was still beyond impressed with it. So we switched it over entirely this year. And at the same time, they're like, hey, why don't you join the team? I was like, hell yeah. So I do all my cranking now on their soft casting, and I have 2 rods, and I had to double check to make sure I get this right, because they have odd sizes, because they primarily go by their pound test is based off of, I forget, the diameter or something. So there's a, what the hell, help me out here, conversion.
Is it gram scale instead of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gram scale, sorry, thank you. So that with that conversion ends up being not dead even, pound weight that we are typically used to from all these other manufacturers. So that's why they have kind of different numbers. So their 9.2 pound is what I throw for jerkbaits, and they're looking for 11.6 pound soft casting is what I throw for everything else for my crankbaits. And I cannot begin to tell you how friggin' impressed I have been by that line. I like that soft casting when I'm throwing crankbaits, because it just, I like having that little bit of extra kind of oomph behind it, but it's not as soft and stretchy as monofilament, which I know a lot of guys live and die by monofilament just for cranking applications. And I was just, it's too soft. That's like trying to set the hook on a spring every single time. I can't do it. It's not for me. So this is like that happy medium between your standard fluorocarbon and monofilament, where it's just a little bit more stretchy. I would even say stretchier than Invisix, which apparently people think of it Invisics is not very stretchy. I feel like it's incredibly stretchy.
Well, I was also using Invisics on on a jig, fish a half-ounce jig in 60 feet of water, so it's pretty freaking stretchy at that distance.
Well, anything is, unless
Yeah.
you're using straight braid.
I don't know. That
It is
Cigar Brazix isn't that bad.
See,
You feel
dude,
bite from pretty far away with that stuff.
yeah, dude, we lived and died by Abrasics for like 6 straight years before we even tried anything else, and it was phenomenal. I had 0 complaints. I really legitimately think that the Defiant line is better. Their heavy cover line is friggin' phenomenal. I switched all of my rods over to that at the beginning of the season. I've had 0 problems, 0 complaints, and that's even with several trips up to Champlain now around all those zebra mussels. I haven't broken off a single bass yet, which is saying something because last year I broke off fish left, right, and center, and that was on brand new Abrasics. So
This is what I use for all big baits, which I may actually jump up to the 28.3.
Oh, you use the heavy cover.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still on the soft casting 23.6.
Ooh,
I like it.
this is like, you ain't breaking that.
Well, see, that's what I like about the soft casting because again, it just gives you a little bit more leeway for error when you make a bad cast. Like you
Carries
thumb
you.
it too hard or whatever. Like it's not just like snap. Oh, that weight, you're probably not going to break it off anyway. But
Well,
you really can't go wrong with either one at that point.
I switched to the heavy cover over the casting because with the new Douglas rods, it's more of a, because the Lewis, it was an extra heavy, I believe I had.
Oh yeah, it was a stiff
And-
rod.
More like moderate.
And so the soft casting worked well with it because it kind of evened out. But now with the Douglas rod, it's more of a, it's more parabolic, and having the heavy cover now, I can really just set the out of it, and it's not gonna, it's hard to
Yeah,
explain.
there's
I know
that
what I'm
balance
trying
between the two. Right, you
Right.
had a really stiff rod before, so you had softer line. Now you have a rod that's got a little bit more give to it, so you can now go to a stiffer line.
got-
And
yeah.
At
Right.
the end of the day, they're essentially the same.
Right.
For how you're setting the hook.
Right.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, buddy.
Thank you.
Sniffing what you're stepping in.
So, for you, your top 3 fluoro brands for cranking.
I only use Sunline.
Only use some. Which one? The Sniper?
Yeah.
FC Sniper?
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys that love it and live and die by it, and I had one bad experience, and I went back to Abrasics and never looked back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like I don't care. Like, I'm not a.
No,
It's not like I haven't tried like a bunch of lines and been like, Sunline's the best. It's just, I started using Sunline. I never had an issue, and it's like, I'm just not going to change.
and that's exactly why a lot of people stick with what they do, and that's a perfectly freaking awesome reason to do it. Like, you pick something up and you have 0 issues with it and all the confidence in the world. Why the hell would you try and do something different unless you were literally looking for something very, very specific in the performance,
Right.
or you're trying to save money?
Yeah.
Because it's not like anybody's going to out and be like, you know what, $20 a spool. I feel like spending $30 a spool. What can I switch to?
Yeah.
All right, so Joe DeSouza did ask rod and reel setups. So you did touch on reels, at least for ratio,
Yes.
but I don't think you really covered rods that much yet, did you?
I have not.
Okay, well, break it. How many cranking rods do you have? I feel like this is a lot.
I would say probably 4 dedicated to cranking, but they're repetitive. Like, I have 2 of certain kinds, and then I have like multiples of
So
ones.
essentially, you have 2 different ones.
I have 3 different ones. I have 2 of one. So I'll just say what they are. So
Do it. Yeah, go for it.
So I use all Mega Bass rods.
Told you he's bougie.
Because I'm bougie. So I would say for the smaller crankbaits, like the Blitz EXDR, this is the 6-pound smallmouth one. I use a Orochi flat side special, which is basically, I want to say it's it might be 7 feet, or it might be 7.2 or something like that. But it's a little bit more parabolic than like a jerkbait rod. It's a medium action rod, but it's somewhat parabolic. It bends, I would say, midway down the blank. And for reels, I just use what is that reel? Shimano. What's the big Shimano one?
The big Corrado, yep.
I use Corrados for all my reels. So every reel that I have is a Corrado.
He bought 2 Wait, 1 or 2 DCs?
Did you?
Shimano Corrado DC. Do you have 1 or 2 now? Oh, you have 1.
Do you like it?
DC.
Do you
I
like the
have
sound?
Two Corrados, one's DC, and the other
The
one's
one where you cast it and it goes, wing.
Yeah, but honestly, it's awesome.
and then I went and bought a Tatula 300.
The Tulas are good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I used to have a bunch of
I
Tatulas.
actually like it a lot. For the
Yeah.
300 though, for the big one.
Yeah,
Oh my god,
they're really smooth.
it's like butter.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
So yeah, I have a Corrado on every rod, but for the actual rods themselves, typically I'll use flat side special, which is a 7-ish foot medium, and for some of the larger crankbaits that were not the really big one, but like for the deep 6, or this is the River to Sea, the tactical bassin one. I don't know what it's called, but the River to Sea one.
Yeah.
Tactical DD something. But for those bigger ones, I use a Megabass P5 Mad Bull, which is basically, it's like a medium plus. So it's not quite a medium heavy. It's like a little bit, Megabass does weird things with their rods where they don't call them medium or medium heavy. They have like a numeric power rating.
That's how Douglas rods is too.
Yeah. So I would say it's a little bit lighter than a medium heavy, but it's still parabolic where it bends like halfway down the blank. So it's like the best chatterbait rod ever, but it's also really good for bigger crankbaits. So I'll use that. And then for really big crankbaits, I'm essentially using like a medium heavy jig rod that is just slightly more parabolic than what you would normally fish it. Almost like, think of like a football jig rod. Like, football jig rod, you're not really like cracking them. It's like it's got a little bit more give to it typically because you're dragging it. Maybe yours doesn't. Maybe yours don't. Maybe yours don't. Okay.
No, I like a little more backbone on mine.
Okay, so when I like a
Football jig.
like my football jig rod is like, it's not as powerful as my jig rod and my normal jig rod. It's like, it's got a little bit more give and a little bit, it's still a medium heavy. It's still got a ton of power, but it has a little bit more like sensitive tip to it because you're usually fishing deep. And
So you use like a medium heavy moderate type of deal?
yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And that's what I would use for like the really, really bigger crankbaits. Those are the 4.
Mint. You know what
So I could use my old jig rod for that.
You could.
I
That would
have
actually
2
work very
rods,
well.
and they were both on sale at Lose.
Oh.
Plus my deal at the time, 7-foot medium moderate fast for my light crankbaits and my jerk baits, and then I have a 7-foot medium fast. Medium. It's not medium heavy, medium fast. Just a little bit more backbone to it, and I use that for like all my square bills and shit. I'm a simple man.
Simple man. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Because it's not a technique that which is funny because when I first got away, when I really expanded on what I was doing, and I was trying to learn new things, crankbaits and jigs are the first 2 things I picked up, and I did a ton of cranking for the first like 4 years that I stopped doing literally just Texas rigging, and then like I started picking up everything else, and I just stopped throwing crankbaits. But it's something I want to do more of this year.
It's funny that you say that because I feel like every like really good fisherman that I know, which you are one of them.
Yep.
And like this is what I've done too. They've done that. They've got like in their upbringing. So like you've been fishing your whole life, just like I am. So like if you consider like 30 years of doing it, like when I was a kid, for like an entire year, it would be like I'm only going to use this crankbait, and like I'm going to get so good with this crankbait.
Yeah.
And then the next year, it's like now I'm going to do it with a spinnerbait, and now I'm going to do it with a jig, and now I'm going to do it with it like, and like you build that up over time, and like now it's like you have so much experience where like you pick up a crankbait, and it's like, oh, my old friend, like I remember you.
Oh, I love this thing.
Yeah.
It's like Texas rig. I don't ever throw that anymore.
See? Yeah, I haven't thrown a Texas rig in like 5 years.
There you go. As I say, Brian's got a message for you in the chat twice now.
Hey, Brian.
You know what I just realized? I need... Oh, wait. Don't...
Well, this was actually one of my old jig rods, and
Yeah,
I
that's
think I'm going to use this for my crankbait rod. Now I just need to get 2 eyelets fixed because the inserts are gone. So this is
Bring it to Joe.
it's a G Loomis
E6X?
7-foot medium heavy fast.
Is it
I'll do it.
E6X or EGX, whatever the hell it is?
The E6X, yeah,
E6X. Hey, I actually remembered. I'm impressed.
with a
I'm usually
custom
really
wrap
bad
on
about
it.
that.
Custom wrap. put that on yourself?
No. I don't wrap anything.
Oh, Andrew. You're back to the Father's Day jokes now.
Sorry.
See, I tell you what, we were at this for an hour and a half, and thankfully, like an hour. So originally I intended for this show to be like an hour of just talking about this.
Yeah.
And then Andrew and I wasted a half an hour talking about everything and nothing. So in the end, we did get an hour in just on this topic, which I think we covered pretty extensively. So I don't know, is there anything else that someone didn't ask you about that you think should have been addressed regarding deep cranking?
Not really. I mean, I think the key to take away is to just try it. Like, it's one of those things where it's the same thing as a jig. Like, and you probably hear that with a jig is like people will go out and they'll throw a jig for 3 casts and be like, I didn't get one on a jig. And then they'll throw a Senko for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And like, it's the same thing with a crankbait where it's like, I threw it at that one rock and didn't get one. So now I'm going to throw a jig or now I'm going to throw a Senko. And like, if you have to, it's one of those things where like, you'll never get good at it unless you do it. So you have to do it. You have to feel how it feels when it's working. Like you have to get into the wind and into the current and feel how it reacts and how it bounces off things. And like it's like muscle memory that you'll get in your hand that you'll know like, oh, that's the juice. Like when it's making that amount of like pull and it's hitting and it's pausing that amount of time. And like you put it together in your head. It's one of those things that you have to do it for the day to be able to really get it down. You're not, like when I go deep cranking, I don't go out and make 5 casts with it and then do something else. Like I do it for the day pretty much.
Yeah. So, all right, I just remembered another question of myself that I meant to ask earlier. Totally forgot about it until now. I know with what limited crankbait fishing that I do, depending upon the depth of the model, I know if I've got like one specific model that's a DT6 and I'm trying to hit something at 5 feet deep, I need to go like X distance past it and have a nice steady retrieve to get it down in time to hit said target 5 feet down. If you're fishing one of these like 16-foot deep and deeper models, like how much does that vary? Where I guess depending on the model, like if Jesus Christ, how do I phrase this? Is there a wide variety in how much further past your intended target you have to go to hit a specific like area at the max depth of that? Like if you've got 5 different models that are all 16 footers and you want to hit something exactly at 16 feet, are all 5 of them like go 30 feet past it and you'll be at your target at 16 feet when you get there, or are they all over the place?
No, they're all over the place. So that depends on the bill basically. Like if you like see how this one the bill comes straight out, but then on this one the bill is kind of angled down. Like this one will get deeper than this one, but it'll take longer to get there.
Oh,
like if the bill is sticking straight out more, it means that it does this and goes down much faster. Whereas this one will do this, but it's going down at an angle like that because it's not going to go straight upright. It's going to go like this.
Gotcha. Okay. See, there you go. See, I feel like I asked a really good question there.
Yeah, it was a good question. Very good question.
Because like I'm thinking about this, and you've got that 30-foot model over there, and I'm like, God damn, I know exactly where I would want to throw that. And Andrew already knows, and you already know exactly where I'm talking about with that. But I'm like, well, shit. How much further past that point do I need to cast before I get it down to my target?
This one will go straight down.
Down.
This one will get right down there.
Just bomb the damn thing as far as you can go. It'll hit your spot eventually.
Like literally.
You probably could cast that a mile.
You both know exactly where I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
We could start at the very point and cast to the other end of that and just dredge the whole thing the whole way back.
Yeah.
Dude, I really need that 30-footer because I'm thinking about it with like where it tops off at like 33 feet deep right there, like getting that thing just to kind of scoot right over the top of everything. And then there's 2 specific rock piles out there that top out at 25 feet. Just right over the top.
We'll get them. See?
How much is that?
I think this one's $30.
Jesus. That's some stuff. I'm still going to buy it.
It's an expensive bottom ornament.
One cast at that spot, and it's gone.
Anybody here excel in scuba diving, free diving? I got a job for you. I tell you what, if someone went out to that specific spot with scuba gear on and just dove that whole area, they could literally probably come back with
So many.
1,000, if not thousands of dollars just in blade baits.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
is
easily.
insane.
Oh yeah,
I've lost a good amount of blade baits there.
Oh yeah, it's impossible not to.
jigs and everything really.
DJ, they're
man.
all sold out. God damn it.
Yeah,
Wait, was that the new one?
This one is like I had to sign on like the second that they were releasing it. I bought 2.
That's not the one you told me about, is it? I mean, you shared it. I'm pretty sure you sent me a picture saying, "Look what I got." And I was like, "Neat," but I didn't know it was the 30-footer.
Yeah, it's this one.
Damn it! All right, I need to be more involved in these things.
See? JDM tackle game.
Yep.
Say goodbye to your bank account.
Yeah, I've already said goodbye to that long ago. I'm getting ready to say goodbye to it for a second time this fall when I buy another boat.
Oh, there you go.
Oh man. All right. Well, Andrew, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we sign off on this?
I don't think so. I think you guys. Well, Dennis, you said it all.
I said it all.
He's the crankbait guy.
Well, before we take off, for anybody, everybody still here, again, thank you. I can never say thank you enough. For those that are still watching also, if you haven't done so yet, turn on post notifications, and it just helps across the board. For any of our social media that you follow, and one of the things I've been trying to be really good about is posting up like reels and YouTube shorts and everything. So like if you follow us on YouTube, you get pinged for any time the short goes up. And I've just been kind of experimenting with like upload times on those, which has been pretty interesting to see the results on that. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, so I don't know. But regular uploads are fairly consistent. And we got another one coming up pretty soon too. I should have a new video up on Friday, which I think is going to be our power fishing day. We did the live stream on it. Then we went out that next Sunday, less than a week later, and we crushed it doing everything we talked about from the live stream.
That's awesome.
I recorded a separate 8-minute video that I ended up posting, I think, on Tuesday, I think is when I did it. I don't know, at some point. And then now we've got like the actual fishing day where you know, like our typical video. So that's going to be up on Friday. I've got a bunch more reels already done. I think I finished like 4 from last night, including a sick cast to catch of Andrew skipping up under a dock catching a donkey.
You got it.
Oh yeah. Well, I was trying to figure out like what do I do with that video because we didn't really do like much of anything else. There's like 2 other good fish, and I was like, screw it, I'll just make a reel from it because like that still helps with everything, and it looks sick. Yeah. So I don't know. Like,
can you see the skip?
Oh yeah, I zoomed way in on it.
Sick.
I'm so excited.
I feel like I have a little bit more creative freedom with the reels and the shorts than I do the whole video, mostly because like to do a 59-second reel takes me like a half an hour of my time versus trying to do because I play around with the clips and I do like a lot more zooming and playing around with it because it's only half an hour.
You're
like,
meticulous.
Well, but I can be versus when I'm staring down like after 10 hours of rough editing and then another 3 hours of refinement editing and then like another 3 hours for me to go and play with like zooming and position. It's like there's only so much I can do. There's only so much time in a day. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. Dennis, thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Dennis. Thanks, Dennis.
Bye, Andrew.
Appreciate you as always.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So yeah, man. Like I don't know. We'll get out there and we'll do this. And I have deep cranks, so you don't have to harass me too hard. I'm gonna do this more this year anyway. I feel like I'm going to catch a donkey doing this. Well, yeah, I wouldn't expect anything else.
We got to go to that spot, bring some of this stuff, make a video.
Okay. In like 3 weeks.
All right.
3 weeks, maybe 4. No, 4 weeks because that tournament is 4.
No, let's not do it during a tournament.
4 weeks.
Yeah,
I got to get past.
It's like 30
with everything else going
like
on.
All 30 boats. Like.
I got to get past that New Hampshire Bass Nation tournament, and then we're free for like the next month after that. Plus, that'll be like ideal timing for this out there, I think.
Yeah, they'll set up out there.
Oh yeah, just especially based off what we saw this past Sunday. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much as always. I appreciate it. Andrew, do your thing.
We will see you guys next week. Hi guys. We'll see you guys next week. Every week, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. at youtube.com/Reel Nothern Bass. Bye.